All right, excuse me. Today we're going to do the spiraling worksheet, week number 8. Number 1 says, which of the following relations is a function? Remember, to be a function, my x values cannot repeat. So if I go through here and I highlight my x values, I can see those are all the same. So I'm repeating, so that's not a function. Number 2, I have 0, 1, and 1. Again, I'm repeating the 1s, so that is not a function. Number 3, I have 0, 1, and 2. That one works. And then I have 0, 1, and 2 on number 4. That one works. So I'm looking for the answer that has 3 and 4. So D is going to be the correct answer. Number 2 says, write an equation for the following. And it gives us a data table. So I'm going to pull up our calculator. And, sorry guys, let's see, here we go. Let me see if I can make that bigger. Too big. Okay, let's try that. Okay, so then on the calculator, I'm going to go to Menu. And then I want to, we're going to go to number 4, add a list or a spreadsheet. And then I'm going to put the x values in A and the y values in B. So let's type those in. So I have 4, sorry, let me try this again. There we go. 4, 5, 6, and 7 for my x values. For my y values, I have 23, 28, 33, and 38. And once I have all the values in, I go to Menu, Statistics for 1 for stat calculations, and 3 for linear regression. I'll put an X in the X list, a Y in the Y list, and hit Enter. And then you can see right here, this is my slope, and this is my y-intercept. So my equation should be y equals 5x plus 3. Number 3 says, solve the system of equations. So remember, that means we're trying to find the point where the two lines would intersect if it was graphed. But the easiest way, of course, again, is our calculator. So let me pull that back up. And I'm going to go to Scratchpad. I could do New Document, but I'll just go to Scratchpad. And then on Scratchpad, I need to go to Menu, and 3 for Algebra, and then not in Solve, but number 2 for Solve System of Linear Equations. I have X's and Y's, so that all looks good, so I can just hit Enter. And in the top line, I'm going to type in my equation. And instead of the 1/2, I'm just going to put 0.5. It's just easier to type for me. And then I have the second equation goes in the bottom, 4y equals 12. And then I can hit Enter. And we have a syntax error. Oh, I see what I did. This should be plus. Sorry about that. Okay, let's try it now. There we go. So my answer is going to be 1, 2.5 or 2.5. And remember, it is a coordinate point, so it should be in parentheses, not these little squiggly brackets that the calculator gives us. It should be in parentheses. Number 4 says, find the x and the y intercepts of each equation. So remember, the x-intercept is always some x value and comma 0. My y is always the 0. For the y-intercept, my x is always the 0, and then whatever the y value is. So if I were to find the x, that means I replace my y with 0. Basically, that means this cancels out, and it leaves 8x equals 72. If I divide both sides by 8, I'm going to end up with x equals 9. So my x-intercept is going to be 9, 0. I can do the same thing for my y. Let me erase that. Okay, if I want to find the y-intercept, I replace my x with 0. So 8 times 0 is 0. So again, basically that's gone, and it just leaves 9y equals 72. Divide both sides by 9, and my y will equal 8. So my y-intercept is going to be 0, 8. So here would be my answer for number 4. Okay, number 5 says, write an equation in slope-intercept form, in slope-intercept for the following. So they've given us a slope and they've given us a point. So that means we are going to put it in point slope form. And this is my x, and this is my y, and this is my m. So I should be able to plug everything in. So I'm going to have y minus my y, which is 2, equals my m, which is negative 7, times my x minus my x value of my point, which is 4. So we're going to distribute the negative 7. So I have y minus 2 equals negative 7x. And then I have negative 7 times negative 4, which will give me a positive 28. Get the y by itself, so I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And I will end up with a negative 7x plus 30. Okay, we're going to simplify the following. Number 6. It is a multiplication problem. We have several exponents. So remember, when my bases are the same, it's multiplying. I add my exponents. When there's not an exponent here, there's an understood 1. So my answer here is going to be y to the 6th power, because I added all my exponents. And 7, when it's division, that means I'm subtracting my exponents. So 9 minus 4 will give me 5. And then 4 minus 2 would give me 2. So here's my answer for number 7. Number 8, I'm distributing a 0 to everything inside the parentheses. So I have 3 to the 0 power. I have x to the 4 times 0, which is 0. I have y to the 8 times 0, which is 0. And everything raised to 0 power, we remember, is just 1. And on number 9, I have to distribute the 2 to every base inside. So that means I'm going to have x to the 6 times 2, which is 12. And y to the negative 3 times 2, which is negative 6. Now remember, I can't leave negative exponents in my answer. So I have to write its reciprocal. So this is a positive, the x value. And so I'm going to have, not the value, but the x term. And so that's going to stay up in the numerator. But my y to the negative 6 will come down in the denominator and become y to the positive 6. Number 10 said for the function f of x equals negative 2x plus 3, what is the range value for f of negative 1/2? So they're asking for the range. Remember, range is the y value. So if they're asking for the y value, that means this is my x, right? So I just plug it in. I've got negative 2 times negative 1/2. Plus 3. So negative 2 times the negative 1/2 is a positive 1. And then 1 plus 3 is just going to give me 4. So my y, and we could say this way, y is going to be a 4. Look at the next one, number 11. 11 is saying we have the function f of x equals 3x minus 12. What is the domain value for f of x equals 15? So domain is going to be my x. And they're telling me that my y, remember f of x just represents the y, so y is going to equal 15. So I'm replacing my f of x with 15, and that means I am solving for the variable x. I can do it by hand, or I could plug it into nsolve, but I'll just do it by hand. It's pretty quick. Isolating my x, so I'm going to get 27 equals 3x, and this is gone. Divide both sides by 3. So 27 divided by 3 is 9. So my x value is going to be 9. Okay, number 12 says Mrs. Hocutt saves half of her weekly entertainment money plus $3 to pay for a camping trip next summer. This function is described by the equation f of x equals 1/2 x plus 3. If the independent value is 80, what is the dependent value? So remember, independent value is just my x. So again, this is another way to just say x is equal to 80. And all I have to do is replace my x with that number. So I'm going to have 1/2 times 80 plus 3. Well, half of 80, of course, is 40. And then I add 3 to that, and I'm going to have 43. So remember, this is a floating decimal grid. I can put the 43 anywhere I want as long as the 4 and the 3 are right next to each other. Don't forget to bubble them in. And if it's positive, I do not have to bubble in the positive, bubble in the positive sign here. Please don't. Otherwise, you might make a mistake and slip and bubble in the negative, and then you've just missed your problem. Okay, 13 says write a recursive formula for the sequence. So remember, the recursive formula is a sub n equals a sub n minus 1 plus d, where d is the common difference. So really, only thing I have to find for this is the common difference. So that means I'm finding the difference between each of these. So to go from 27 to 41, I increased by 14. Make sure that stays the same. 41 to 55, I increased by 14. And 55 to 69, I still increased by 14. So my common difference is 14. So I'm just going to write a sub n equals a sub n minus 1 plus 14. And this would be my recursive formula for this particular sequence. Okay, number 14 says, asking us to factor. And if we go through our list, we don't have a greatest common factor. I can't do grouping. I do have a trinomial, and it does have a lead coefficient. So remember, we're going to turn this trinomial into 4 terms, and then we can do our grouping. So my first term comes down, and my last term comes down. And then I will take 6 times 7 and make my chart. So I have 42. And then I'll find the factors of 42. 3 will go, I don't know how many times, 14 times. 4 won't go, 5 won't go, 6 will go, and that's it. Okay, and then I add and I subtract, and I add and I subtract my factors, adding and subtracting, adding and subtracting. And I am looking for my middle term of 23. I found it right here. So I'm going to use 2 and 21 to make my 2 terms. And the signs are going to be the same because it's in the plus column. Okay, so I'm going to take my 2 and my 21. And when I put it here, I'm going to put x's. Because remember, these 2 terms create this middle term. And my signs are the same, and they're whatever that sign is. So they're both going to be positive. So now that I have 4 terms, I can do grouping because we already know how to do that. So I'm going to group the first 2 and I'll group the second 2. And I find out whatever's common here in the first set of parentheses, which looks like it's going to be a 2 and an x. So 2x times 3x will give me the 6x squared, plus 2x times 1 will give me the 2x. Here it looks like I've got a 7, so I'll factor out a positive 7. So 7 times 3x will give me the 21x. 7 times 1 will give me the 7. My parentheses are the same. So when I go to create my final answer, I've got 2x that I factored out plus 7. And then I have the 3x plus 1. And this would be my answer. Okay, let's look at 15. It also asks me to factor. Again, I don't have a GCF. I can't do grouping because I don't have 4 terms. I don't have a trinomial, but it looks like I probably have the difference of perfect squares because the square root of 16 is 4, the square root of a squared is a, and the square root of 9 is 3, and I'm subtracting. So that means I'm going to have 4a plus 3, and then I will have 4a minus 3. And there would be my answer for 15.